Well, guys, that does it pretty much for all the conferences at E3. We finished, I think, on a high note. Nintendo, I personally think, had the best of the three companies, and while it was also the shortest of the three companies by a good bit, it seemed like they rolled a lot into 25 minutes, and it was definitely the most exclusives that were there out of all the companies, because pretty much everything we saw, minus a few titles, is just on the Switch. It's not on either of the other systems. But even though I think it was the best of the three, there were still some issues with the presentation that I'd like to go over with, because none of these presentations were perfect. Really, the best live presentation was still probably Ubisoft, and since Nintendo's technically wasn't live, I wouldn't really include it there, but the Direct itself was good, so let's just go through every bit step by step so we can talk about it here. So the first thing we get is like that sizzle reel that had all the different games we saw, of course. FIFA, ARMS, saw some Splatoon in there, and then we see Psyonix, Rocket League, which was surprising because I think while everyone has been really hinting and kind of tweeting at them, fans have, of the system, or people who just want a portable Rocket League have been tweeting to them saying, hey, can we get this thing on the Switch? They've been kind of vague about it and said, we'll look into it. And then out of nowhere, boom, there's Rocket League on the Switch. And it looked like, if that's footage from a Switch, which again, a lot of these press conferences, they don't show you direct footage from a Switch, they show you footage and then they overlay it onto a Switch. In this case, they did it in a rendering during a video. But if they have it running well enough at a decent resolution, that's going to be very impressive, because I remember when that game came out, it was really, really beating up the PS4 to the point where the fan would get really loud on the PS4 just at the title screen where you're looking at the car in the grass, and they told you to not look at the crowd, to like aim it down so it would stop overheating PS4s. So the fact that they can get a game like that is heavy on physics with the ball that's getting kind of knocked around, and even some computers that have okay specs, not like amazing, but okay specs, they don't run Rocket League the best, so it does take a little bit of power to run that game, despite it not being like a graphical powerhouse. Either way, Rocket League is a good pickup for the Switch. Again, a lot of people wanted it, and it's nice to see it finally on a portable system. I think it's impressive, honestly, to see it on Tegra X1. That's really cool to see that happen, because that had to have taken some engineering and some programming knowledge to get that done, and looks like I guess the Switch really is easy to program for with how that game moved over in a pretty timely fashion. And Rocket League is one of the games coming over this year. They said holiday 2017. Holiday usually means anywhere from October to December, so look somewhere in there to pick up Rocket League. The word is it's $19.99 digitally, same as Steam and everywhere else. We jump from there and go to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and I've been waiting for this game for a while. I've been very vocal. It looks very good. It looks like vast, looks huge, right? I mean, that's what really Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Wii U that a lot of people played would talk about, how big that game really was. The map was massive. And yeah, this one looks massive too. I like the idea of you kind of being living on Titans, as basically massive creatures essentially that everyone kind of lives on. They said there's like no actual world below you, and then there's a big tree basically that you're trying to get to. But they said there's a bunch of different Titans out there that you can get on, and they have different worlds that are on them, and it's kind of neat. I like the idea, and to think that that's going to be a portable handheld system and it looks that massive is really exciting to me. I think this is going to be a really cool RPG. Looks very similar. Again, the battle mechanics look similar to Chronicles X, so if you played that, you enjoyed it, you're probably going to like this one too. And surprisingly, that one is out holiday 2017 as well. I think a lot of people, including myself, we were expecting for that to get pushed to 2018, because it's hard to believe that game's already almost done and ready to go with how large it is. There is this interesting, I guess, I don't want to say rumor, but a statement going around that they are using pretty much the same engine that used Chronicles X, I believe, and that's why it was so easy to get up and running and working. But if it's holiday 2017 and there seems to be this December month kind of set up for it, that's very close to 2018, and that could easily be kind of pushed over into February, for example, if it's not going to work out for that release schedule. So really, when I get at a solid date, because all we say is holiday 2017, when I see a solid date, then I'll say, okay, yes, it's coming out, we're good. I think the fact that we didn't get a solid date means they're either have not landed on one yet, or they're still kind of working out the fine details to finish it up. Now, after that announcement, we kind of go into like a string of future games. Most of these games are either 2018 or beyond. I say beyond because there's a few where there's just no, like, not even a year is named here. So let's get to the first one. That is Kirby, which looks awesome. It looks like it has 4-player co-op, which is really cool because when they were running around, they had 1, 2, 3, 4-player. So of course it's the Switch. It's going to keep its co-op mentality. Hopefully that's straight up couch co-op. I assume it is. You can sync up several Joy-Cons probably, or Pro controllers. That's definitely a game with a side-scrolling aspect that would be easy to use a single Joy-Con. Just kind of turn it sideways and it almost turns into a Super Nintendo controller almost. So that would work well. It looks like Dreamland, right? It looks so cool. So I am excited. I like playing Kirby a lot. I want to see more about the different worlds and stuff you go to, but it looks like, you know, you get the power-ups and you eat enemies and you have a bunch of people running around with you. So I'm excited. And from there we get into 2 games that have 0 release window from what we can tell. They must be in early development, or they are just not sure when it's going to be ready. The first one is definitely in early development. That is a new Pokemon game, from what they've said, a core RPG Pokemon game, and that's the big thing. It's a core game. It's not going to be like Pokemon Coliseum or some offshoot. Pokemon XD. From what they're saying, it is a mainline core game. They didn't say mainline, but core. I mean, come on. Besides, where are they going to put Pokemon after the 3DS? It has lived its life and it's kind of, you know, ridden off into the sunset. You put it on the Switch. That seems to be the case here, and that's what they're doing. The way they set this whole thing up, though, kind of makes me feel like this was almost a reaction to what happened with the community when we heard that the Pokemon Direct was simply like Pokken Tournament. And the way this worked was they kind of panned into a room with Mr. Ishihara there, and he was like, they made it like we just, you know, we snuck up on him, where he's like, oh, didn't see the camera crew there. How's everyone doing? and of course, zero gameplay footage, 0 stock images, a render, any kind of cinematic trailer, nothing. He basically is just like, yeah, we're working on it. It's cool. Don't worry about it. That almost feels like, doesn't it? It almost feels like an knee-jerk reaction to people kind of freaking out about the Pokemon Direct. And that could have been filmed like 2 days prior to this entire setup. Like, I don't think that's the case, but it could have been. And it just feels like they were like, oh man, people are really mad. You know, let's just tell them that it's on the way. Because he even says, well, it's probably going to take more than a year to get done. And that tells me, yeah, it's honestly, they probably got started in production a little bit ago, but they had to put it out there because people did lose their mind during that Pokemon Direct. It's all over the internet. And then pretty much from there, like seriously, we hear that there's a new Pokemon game coming. Like 2 minutes later, we break away into the biggest announcement, obviously, I think, of the entire trailer, the entire show they did here. And that is Metroid Prime 4 gets announced. And you know what? This is awesome. I've been a massive, I've been talking about Metroid being there this entire time, since this entire build-up. Like, man, I hope Metroid's there. I want a Metroid Prime game, and we're getting it. But then I was like, that's great. And then it ended, and I was like, oh, well, okay. I mean, that's another game where I feel like they just wanted to tell us it was on the way, right? But it's not at all ready, like, to show. I wish they had something. They could have even made up, like, a cinematic trailer. You know, how they do, like, this, like we saw Beyond Good and Evil 2, right? That was mostly a cinematic trailer. I wish they had prepared something like that. I mean, they showed us a logo and kind of a reveal, and it looked like something that could have been done in, like, Adobe, like, After Effects or whatever, and I was looking at it, I was like, that almost looks like a logo that would be like a whole intro logo scene that would be done on like a YouTube channel or something. And look, I like the announcement. I'm excited. I want to see where this is going to go with the Metroid Prime saga. I just feel like, I don't know, I wanted a little more, right? I wanted to see something, anything. They could have done, even just shown Samus kind of looking at the camera and like kind of pan away or just anything. I don't know, something. But it's coming. You know, Metroid Prime 4 is coming. I just feel like they could have done it a little bit better. Then we get our last game that is coming in 2018, and that is a Yoshi side-scroller. They just put up a title of Yoshi, but it looks cool. When I first saw it, I thought of like Yoshi's Story or Yoshi's Island, because of course you're eating enemies, throwing eggs, and they added this weird like 2D, 3D kind of look where you're flipping the entire world around. It's almost like it's, the rest of the world is done in paper, and they showed just some pretty quick, pretty straightforward gameplay of the entire like setup that they have there with that 2D, 3D aspect. And I liked it. It looked good. But again, I want to see a little more. Most of these 2018 teasers were just that. They were teasers. And really, nothing shows more so than how much a teaser cannot tell you when you see something like Mario Odyssey later on in the show. But yeah, Yoshi is 2018. We still have quite a while to wait for anything else on that. I'm sure we'll see another Direct, maybe in December. You know how they kind of do their end of the year Direct and tell us about what's coming out the following year. So we'll keep an eye on that. I do like the idea here. I didn't really like Yoshi's Island on the 3DS as much, so maybe they got a little more creative here, because I like the 2D, 3D where you kind of flip the world around. That's a cool idea. After that, we get kind of the home stretch. They go back to the 2017 releases. We see the Fire Emblem Warriors breakdown. We see gameplay. It was in motion, and it looked fine. I'm not a big Warriors person. I'm gonna tell you that now. I know there's a lot of people who are big Dynasty Warriors fans and everything. They like Fire Emblem. This is kind of dream come true, right? Because you're getting Fire Emblem and you're getting Warriors, and it's kind of mixed together. And I'm sure it's gonna be a good game. I just looked at it and I was like, okay, it looks like I don't want to say mindless hack and slash because there's more to it, but it looks like a hack and slash. And you know what? That's great. Again, a lot of people like it. I think it looked good for that type of a game. And there was a lot more to it, because I'm not going to talk about the Treehouse now, but they did show quite a bit in the Treehouse later on in their show, about 2 hours later. And then we get hit with quick look at Skyrim, very quick. They basically just talk about how, you know, there's Zelda exclusive items in it, and then it jumps back over. We see the Zelda DLC. Now this is I think where the entire thing slowed down, because we were on such a high, right, of seeing all these new releases and announcements. If I could tell them to do it a little differently, I would have taken Zelda and put it closer to the beginning, because this is almost like that, like a very slow period. Because yes, it's great to see the DLC, but they could have started with this and just gotten it out of the way, and then it would be like, you know, one hit after the other in terms of new games and new gameplay and excitement. I guess they wanted to get like a nice little period of kind of like people recovering for the really big thing that was coming. And then kind of linked next to that was Mario and Rabbids. We saw that at Ubisoft, very brief here, very brief. They just kind of showed it off to their audience. That way Ubisoft's audience and Nintendo's audience saw it. But then we moved directly into what was by far this game, Mario Odyssey, looks amazing. Like, we saw Mario Odyssey before, right? And we were like, what is weird? He's running around in New York. He can jump off his hat. That's cool. And then all of a sudden, it breaks off into this awesome musical number that I think fits the game perfectly. It's a very catchy tune. Unfortunately, I can't play it here for you for copyright reasons, but if you go look at the trailer, it's there. And it was playing all throughout the Treehouse when they did breaks and everything. And yes, it is a very, very catchy song. But they show him taking his hat, throwing it onto people, and all of a sudden he like possesses that creature or that animal or that car. A car. What? and it looked so fun. The visuals looked great, by the way. Very colorful, very, very vibrant colors. And the gameplay looked like Mario. Like, I was having flashbacks to like how I was feeling when I saw Mario 64 for the first time. When I walked into Best Buy and I looked up and there were tube TVs in like a 3-3-3, you know, 9, a big square. And I'm looking up there and I'm like, wow, that looks awesome. And I'm looking at Mario Odyssey and I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, wow, that looks really good. And it has the platforming mechanics. Ah, man, the game itself looks great. And then they kind of go into a little more in Treehouse where they have currency with the coins where you're buying stuff. It's almost like they mixed in some quests kind of with Mario, because like in one portion, I know I'm going to the Treehouse here, but one portion they collected coins, they bought like a costume for him, and then all of a sudden he was allowed into the nightclub because he was wearing like a sombrero and a whole getup and everything. So it looks like there's more depth to this than a standard Mario game, but just from that quick teaser, man, I gotta ask some people who are playing at E3, just see how tight the controls are. But yeah, Nintendo did a good job. I think this is more than most people were expecting with their 25-minute time frame. I think a lot of people saw that and they were just assuming they're in trouble because they won't have enough time to show everything. But keep in mind, guys, they already had this made up and then they gave us the 20. It's not like they were trying to jam this stuff into a time frame they were given. They made this video and then they told the people at E3, our video is 25 minutes long. That's it, you know. And it was quick. It was to the point. There was no pause, delay between announcements. That's kind of one of the benefits to not have to do a live conference. I like the live conferences just because of the interactivity with the developers. It's live, so things can go wrong. You know what though? Nintendo did good here. I think at this point, if again, I don't give grades to anything, but if I had to rank them between the 3 conferences, I would probably go... The last 2 are tough. I would put Nintendo 1, Only because, I mean, if you look at it, they had the most exclusives for their system. They are clearly pushing their system along, whereas the other two systems obviously are hoping third parties can help them through this holiday, especially Sony. Sony seems to be banking heavily on third party this year, and that's fine. They've earned that right to. They've released plenty of exclusives at the beginning of this year, so yeah, it's fine for third parties to help them through. They're providing marketing. So I would go Nintendo, then I'd probably put Sony, and then I'd put Microsoft. And this is tough because Microsoft, their biggest boon right now is still that you can get a lot of the stuff on the computer. So they really didn't do a good job selling their system. Like Sony, okay, they sold their system because they're showing us games that you cannot get, especially Spider-Man, which looks awesome. You can't get that anywhere else. You can't get Mario Odyssey anywhere else. You know, you can't get Metroid Prime 4 while we didn't see it anywhere else. But a lot of the games we saw with Microsoft, you can get other places. I can buy it on my PC. And that's the one problem with Microsoft as a game console developer, provider. You know, they're providing us with a console that we just don't really need to buy if you have a PC. And I know not everyone has a PC, but I mean, they're getting easy enough to make now, right? So I don't know. Again, if I had to go buy the three companies that produce consoles and give them to us, for how well they sold their console this E3 in their conference: Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft. That's me. That's my opinion. You're allowed to disagree with it. We're all allowed to make lists about these things, right? My favorite conference is still Ubisoft because it's a live conference, a little harder to do than what Nintendo did, where they kind of hit play and you get everything played. But my favorite game announcements were probably with Nintendo because, let's face it, I'm a big Metroid fan. Metroid Prime 4 was there. There you go. But yeah, guys, I'm curious to see what your list down below is as well, just in the three different companies. I mean, you could throw others in there, but you know what? I got my list. I don't like grading them because it's... how arbitrary is putting a number or a letter on something? I mean, come on. But that's it for now, guys. I was very happy with Nintendo, very surprised. Check out their Treehouse coverage as well, because they're announcing stuff for Treehouse. 3DS stuff, they held off till Treehouse. There's another Metroid game for the 3DS. There's a Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga remake coming. So yeah, check that as well, guys. Had fun at E3 this year. It was a lot of fun to do this stuff. I'm going to keep an eye on the Treehouse, the EA or Microsoft Play that they're doing. They're doing a lot more stuff as well. So throughout the week, I'll keep updating you guys, and I'll see you next time.